All throughout history, the patriarchal system has sought to control decision making and sovereignty for women's bodies. You can see it in the historical record since the beginning of time. And in light of the current election results, no, I promise this is not going to be yet another reduction and analysis of the election results, but more a look at the history of Americans fighting for equality and justice and winning, and how knowledge is power. So join me this week as we see how the rebel rises through the power of knowledge.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of Reproductive Rebel. This week, I want to reflect a little bit. There have been a lot of social media posts, news about the election results, and this episode is not designed to be political and polarizing in terms of our two-party system here in the United States and, you know, voting along party lines or anything like that. So please don't turn the channel. This is not that kind of a conversation. This is a conversation about history. This is a conversation about Americans through history fighting for equality and justice and winning. And despite the election results, we won't give up. It's like that quote that well-behaved women seldom make history. It's absolutely that idea because the election means a loss for a lot of people. And particularly, this loss is around body sovereignty and reproductive rights. And there's a lot of scary conversation that's happening about where the trajectory around my body, my choice is going to go in the future. And this is not a soapbox to rage against the machine or anything like that. Reproductive Rebel has always been an invitation to consider another way of looking at things and another way of moving through the world and rebelling against the status quo, meaning that we just accept what is and move on. And in all of these social media posts and, you know, things that I've seen where people are grieving our potential outcomes for the future. And believe me, I'm among them. I am heartbroken that the upcoming administration is of the opinion that women really shouldn't be allowed to make a lot of decisions around their health. And I do grieve for the future of my daughters under the current circumstances. I felt that way very much so with the overturn of Roe versus Wade. You know, regardless of whether you are pro-life or pro-choice, there are a lot of medically driven reasons why these choices need to be available for people to make and for families that desperately want these babies. So it's not even like not honoring the sanctity of life. This is a conversation around women being able to live. Very basic things like there is a medical choice that it could be the mom or the baby or both that are lost. And now you don't even have the ability to make decisions around everyone's safety. So, yes, I grieve these things. But I also look at the fact that all throughout history, there have been powers that be that try to control things. And this attempt at control, and I say it that way intentionally, this attempt at control is done from a place of fear. So a lot of patriarchal values come out of the fact that there's a nonverbal acknowledgement that women are powerful. And the attempt to control them is done out of fear that if they rise up, have more knowledge, all of these things, that they're going to disrupt this accepted status quo. We've seen this since, oh my goodness, the beginning of time, honestly. We've seen it with the witch trials. We've seen it with the abortion bans. We've seen it. I mean, there's tons and tons of times throughout history where people with herbal knowledge were targeted, people who have body wisdom were targeted. So, as we look back at how the patriarchal system has attempted to control the outcome of women's bodies all throughout history, we also see that herbal wisdom didn't die. We see a huge movement right now. The wave of the divine feminine is rising. And more women are questioning the traditional medical model, the standard of care that they're receiving, and they're looking outside that system for options that feel more aligned to them. With the abortion bans and the conversation around further restrictions on women's ability to make choices around their health with potential limits to birth control, a potential national abortion ban. And I say potential because none of these things have come to pass at the time of this recording. There's just a lot of conversation and fear mongering that is happening right now. A lot of fear mongering. And it's the whole reason why I wanted to do this episode. Because while we are all exhausted with conversations around election results and who's going to win and what the outcomes are going to be, depending on which candidate ended up getting elected and all of these things, like, regardless of whether you're happy or you're angry with the outcome of the election, we're all exhausted and oversaturated by it because there's been a lot of shit slinging for weeks now, right? But I'm saying all of this not to stir the pot from a political standpoint, but to talk about the fact that you are not powerless. And there's been a lot of legislation to try and control women's bodies throughout history. And if we look at sexual education in this country, we currently preach this from an abstinence only position. And the mentality around that is if we teach them how their bodies work, they're gonna use them. Instead of a more intelligent approach, which would be something to the effect of if they know how their bodies work, they know how to take care of them, and they can make informed choices. Because if you tell a teenager, I don't know if any of you listening have teenagers, but I do. And if you tell a teenager not to do something, their response is Oh no? Watch me. So if you preach abstinence only, what do you think they are going to do? Exactly what you don't want them to. But you're like that as an adult too, right? You don't want to be told what to do. That's part of the reason why all of these legislative changes and proposed changes makes so many of us so angry is we feel like our hands are becoming tied and that we do not have control over our bodies and the government is going to micromanage and regulate what we can do with our bodies. Let's flip the fucking script. Let's challenge this status quo. You are only as helpless as the amount of information you have, right? Knowledge is power. No one can take that away from you. Sure, they can change the rules of the game. They can change what you can legally make decisions about and not, but they cannot take away knowledge in your head. So this is why I say that abstinence only is insane because it is an attempt to control. If you think about it, if you give people too much information, ooh, they might do something with it, right? The most dangerous people are the that are most knowledgeable. And I say that because they know how the system works and they know how to work around it, right? This show is called Reproductive Rebel for a reason. This show challenges the current narrative, which is that birth control regulates periods, which is bullshit. It challenges the fact that we are supposed to be productive in every aspect of our lives 24/7 with no exception, and it's bullshit. I am now stepping forward and challenging the narrative that the change in regulations means the end of our life. It's bullshit. The change in regulation simply means that we collectively, as bleeding bodies, now have to take control in a different way, at least until we can get some of these bullshit rules changed. It means that body literacy education now becomes critically more important than it has ever been in history. Knowing how your cycle works, knowing how to count your cycle. There are some people out there that are already putting up social media posts that say things like, stop tracking your period in a tracker just because they don't have to legally release the information right now doesn't mean there won't be a change in government oversight and they will have to turn over your cycle data. Like all of these things are fear mongering because we don't know what is coming. And we have been made to feel so powerless by these changes at a governmental level that we're eating this shit up. So let's flip the script. They only control the power if we let them. If you learn how your cycle works and you learn how to control your cycle, and you learn how to make choices around your cycle, you now are no longer a damsel in distress. You are fucking powerful. And you are now no longer affected by these mass legislative changes at the scale that they would like to think they're controlling us at. Just think about it. There is a big push, and I've seen this on social media too, go on birth control because they're trying to control your body. You're buying into big pharma when you're going on birth control. You are making your body nutrient depleted when you go on birth control. Should you decide to come off of birth control in the future, whether you decide to have a baby or it's making you feel like a crazy pants on a whole bunch of levels, which it happens that way for a lot of us, There are definitely emotional symptoms. There are definitely physical symptoms that come along with birth control. There are adverse side effects. And please do not buy into the narrative that a copper IUD means that you don't have side effects. That is not true. Your body reacts to the copper. I see lots of clients in my practice that are having problems with BV and other kinds of infections because of having a copper IUD. So it is not completely symptomless. All right. You need to be aware of that. However, sure, birth control feels like a safe bet. But if you actually look at the rates of failure, okay, because birth control has a failure rate. If you look at birth control failure rates, typical IUD, birth control, pill, condom type, like contraceptive methods have between an 83 and an 86% failure rate, depending on which one you're looking at, and so on and so forth. If you learn how your cycle works and you are tracking your cycle effectively, it is 99.4% effective. 99.4. That is a huge margin of difference between a pharmaceutical contraceptive, and I say that meaning non-hormonal and hormonal contraceptive devices, okay, and family planning approaches or fertility awareness. 99.4. So, which one do you think makes you safer? One, you're continuing to feed the big pharma model, and you have a lower percentage of efficacy. On the other hand, you maintain control over your data, your body, information about your body, and you have a higher chance of not getting pregnant. So, knowledge is power. One thing that I see with my clients a lot when we start having that conversation around birth control and that type of stuff is the fact that as a society collectively, we have been supported in going on autopilot around our body, meaning we take a pill 3 weeks, then we stop taking the pill for a week, then we start taking those pills again. We don't have to think about it. Same thing with an IUD. It goes in, you don't have to think about it. An implant, it goes in, you don't have to think about it, right? Yes, there is a little bit more thought involved. But if we can normalize that conversation, you become a rebel. You are rebelling against a system that is broken. The birth control system is broken and it is riddled with symptoms that affect people's lifelong health. You are rebelling against a system that is telling you what you can and cannot do with your body, and that's fucking bullshit. Because it should be my body, my choice. And the nastiest part of the rhetoric that I have seen on social media so far is I have seen posts that say, "Your body, my choice." Let's talk about something coming straight out of the patriarchal mouthpiece, shall we? Your body, my choice. It is never somebody else's choice. It is your choice. And don't let any legislation or person make you think that it is not your choice. It is your choice. If you choose a birth control option, you've made a choice. If you've chosen to work outside of the big pharma and government regulated system and maintain your data in a workbook, but maintain tracking data for your cycle, you've made a choice. There are plenty of fertility awareness educators out there right now who are hungry to empower you with that kind of information. And if you want referrals, reach out to me and I will send you links of some really great folks that will teach you what you need to know. I teach this in my clinic. There are plenty of fertility awareness educators that are out there that want to teach you, want to empower you to have the knowledge that you need about your body to make the decisions that feel aligned to you. Because as you start tracking your cycle, you start getting healthier. Are in more alignment with what your body actually needs. You're able to identify potential issues with your health and improve your health. Fertility awareness is such an empowering tool. And then when you choose to get pregnant, should that feel aligned to you, all you have to do is make sure that you have sex during your fertile window. If you do not wish to ever get pregnant, you make sure that you take precautions during the 7-day window. 7 days out of your entire month. You only have 7 days that you can get pregnant. Why would you take a hormonal anything all month long, wrecking your hormones and your minerals and nutrients profile in your body for 7 days? Okay. Yes, I'm a big advocate for fertility awareness, but should you choose to use a pharmaceutical contraceptive, I'm not throwing any shade. What I'm saying is that you need to be able to make informed choices, and that comes from education. This is why my practice, Moon Essence, is so incredibly passionate about education first, because we've grown up in an abstinence only culture. We've been indoctrinated into believing that we need a pill or some sort of medical intervention in order to make our bodies operate correctly. And really and truly, the secret sauce is diet and lifestyle choices that are in alignment with your cycle. It helps to clear up your symptoms. And then you have all of your fertility markers that you need in order to be able to track appropriately. Does it take a little bit of time to establish those? Yes, because for a lot of people, and myself included, okay, so I say all of this as somebody who had a heart attack on birth control after taking it for 10 years because I was told and I believed my medical provider that this birth control pill was going to regulate my cycle. It didn't do anything except make the problem worse. So when I went off of said birth control, my symptoms were worse for a while, and then they got exponentially better. So it's not without a little bit of a bounce, but I am telling you that the healing is totally worth it. And the power is now in your hands and not in the hands of any governmental agency or big business that is going to dictate what you can and cannot do and what you do or do not have access to. So be a rebel. You're listening to this show. You're already questioning. You're already curious. I love that. And I'm so glad that you're here. It's the whole reason this show came into being, because there are other ways and things that we have always come to accept as normal that are not normal. They are normalized. This is no different. Many of us that are listening to this show, and again, myself included, our sexual ed training, education in school was don't put the P in the V because you'll get pregnant. Take a birth control pill not to get pregnant. Here are the anatomical parts of the male body and the female body. And, oh, by the way, if you put the P in the V, there's a ton of diseases that you can get, so just don't do it. Am I wrong? How many of you are nodding your head right now going, "Yep, that's about the extent of the education I got too." It wasn't until years later that I learned that I have different energetic changes all throughout the month. There are sometimes it's normal to be tired. There are sometimes it's normal to feel like you are on top of the world and you are a powerhouse and a badass. You're always a badass, but let's face it, there are some days you feel more like a badass than others. So we have this incredible opportunity to feel better, to live healthier, and to not be a damsel in distress as we fight for the autonomy that we had before Roe versus Wade that we can have again. Oftentimes, we have to hit rock bottom before there's enough frustration and anger and a whole list of emotions to climb back out. I think we've hit that spot. And it'll be interesting to see in the next 4 years if the slide is going to continue or if there's going to be enough voices that are going to challenge current legislation to make some change. But this is not permanent. This is not forever. We gained the right to vote as women. Segregation went away. Like, there are so many things, like women's ability to hold a credit card, for God's sake. That's not that old. A woman's ability to own a business. That's not that old. 30 to 50 years, guys. Like, these are things that in our lifetime, they just were for most of us. So the shock of losing those rights with Roe versus Wade hit a lot of us really hard. And then the results of the most recent election in the United States makes us feel like we've fallen further because we have grown up in a world where we didn't know that these things didn't exist before. They just were. It does not mean that they won't be again. So I want to witness and honor the grief, the anger, the frustration, all of the emotions that are coming up right now. We are in the fall season, so definitely make sure that you address the grief so that you don't end up with an imbalance in your lungs and large intestines. But this is not permanent. This is not forever. And one of the greatest things that we can do, because this is what women have been doing all through history. Patriarchal powers that be say you can't do this. Women would gather and we would remember and we would hold this information in sisterhood, which is why midwifery still exists. This is why herbalism still exists. All of these things, they didn't die when the powers that be tried to make them die. But it means holding the line and not letting fear rule. This is the rise of the rebel. And I'm proud to be part of the wisdom keepers that is going to help keep this information alive because they can't take knowledge away from you. They can't. They can try to control all of the parameters around you as much as they want, but they cannot steal your knowledge. So now is the time. I have a program called Body Basics. So if you are looking at this and go, I don't know squat about my cycle, start there. It's a quick, easy self study watch kind of thing. So you can rewatch it. It is not taught from a sex based place, it is taught from a body literacy based place. So if you have younger women, in the house and you're not ready to have that conversation with them yet, you can still teach them about their bodies without sex being a piece. Yes, it is possible to provide body literacy without any talk around sex. That's how that program is taught. If you are looking for fertility awareness educators, I can hook you up. I have an amazing network of colleagues that I would be happy to direct you to if you want to learn how to chart and really take a deep dive into learning how your body works. Don't let them scare you. They want to scare you. They want to hold power over you. The more you know, the less power they have. It is easy to be fearful, especially in the face of the unknown. But you got this. Reach out to me. We'll rise together.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at MoonEssenceMe on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.